The July meeting of the Suffolk City Board of Zoning Appeals will now come to order. Ms. Knight, if you'll call the roll, please.
Richard Eslick.
Here.
Peter C. Jackson.
Present.
Daniel Froman.
Here.
Melissa Vendible.
Present.
Howard Benson.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum and 100% attendance. Thank you for that. At this time, are there any corrections to the minutes of the June meeting?
Yes, sir.
If not, can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
From Board Member Venerable, do I hear a second?
Second.
From Board Member
Froham.
Froman. Yes, sir. I'll get it out in a minute. All right, motion and second for approval. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. All right. Our first matter of business is old business. It's BZA 12-2021, Frank Rawls, 1519 Holland Road. This board did have a public hearing on this application in the June meeting. It was tabled for a vote for this month. At this time, I'll call on staff for an overview.
Good afternoon, board members. So I had spoken with the applicant. I'm Jennifer Cobb again with the zoning office. I had spoken with the applicant, and they made some revisions to the sign out at 1519 Holland Road. Previously, it looked like this with an electronic message board underneath of it. They have come back. They want to keep the same height and sign area. They just have suggested making it a static message board where you would just slide the letters across instead of having it electronic and changing. So therefore, staff now could recommend approval with those changes made. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Let me perhaps recycle your last statement. In the documentation, there is no comment from staff for denial or approval. Did we just understand you correctly that staff recommends approval with the application the way it is now?
Staff can now recommend approval, yes, sir.
All right, thank you for that. While you're at the podium, let me turn to the board members to see if there are any questions to you about this application. Thank you, Ms. Cobb. And before I call on the board for questions, comments, or a motion, let me turn to the applicant. Is there any new information that the applicant, Mr. Rawls, would like to make concerning this application?
No, sir.
That's correct. All right, okay. Thank you, Ms. Cobb.
May I ask Ms. Cobb one? I apologize for not doing it at the right time. Just a quick question. The message board that's underneath the large sign, that's included in the 101 square feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the city has no issue with that?
No, because what was there previously was pretty large, and they had to take it down with the road widening.
Okay.
And so it'll be smaller in height as well, what they're proposing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Now, with that said, I turn to the board for questions, comments, or a motion.
I'll move that the motion be approved as amended.
All right. Motion for approval from Board Member Froman for approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
From Board Member Jackson. Motion and second for approval. Discussion of the motion. Motion is for approval. Ms. Knight, call for the vote, please.
Richard Eslick.
Yes.
Daniel Froman.
Yes.
Peter C. Jackson.
Yes.
Melissa Vendible.
Yes.
Howard Benson.
Yes.
The vote carried.
Congratulations to the applicant. All right. Now we move to public hearings. Public hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, 5 minutes for rebuttal by proponents. Our first public hearing this afternoon is BZA 2021 Black Tip Associates, map number, and I may need to put my glasses on to get this number read correctly, 35H parenthesis 4 parenthesis F star PTS star 6. At this time, I recognize staff.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 20-2021. The applicant, Blacktop Associates LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5.75 feet to construct a single-family residence. The property is identified as tax map 35H, parentheses 4F, asterisk PTS, asterisk cents, and parcel 100408000, Wellerville Voting Borough, zoning classification, residential medium density, RM. When you act on this request, you'll be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 5.75 feet to construct a single-family residence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings listed in your package must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have a staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, Zone Administration and Enforcement Manager.
Good afternoon. Ms. Knight also has a revised survey that was not included in your packet because I didn't have that actual survey showing the proposed dwelling on it at the time that the packet was put together. It just had a building envelope on the one that was in your packet. So as previously stated, the applicant, Black Tip Associates, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to, actually, it's 5.73, which is on the survey that they provided just recently, for construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35H, parentheses 4, parentheses F, asterisk PTS, asterisk 6, located on Raleigh Avenue, Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville, Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2, 2204 of the Code of Virginia. The public notice sign was also posted on the property as requested. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks in order to construct a new single-family dwelling. The dimensional standards for a newly platted lot in the RM zoning district requires lots to have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a lot width of 80 feet measured at the front setback line. This lot is non-conforming with approximately 30,150 square feet of land area and 31.5, I believe it's actually 31.4 feet in lot width as illustrated on the attached survey. The lot is located within the city's infill development area, and the width of any newly constructed home must be a minimum of 20 feet wide. Due to the inability of the applicant to meet the infill development requirements with a 20-foot wide dwelling on such a substandard lot without obtaining a variance, staff recommends approval of this request. And there are elevations provided in the staff report that you guys have in front of you. This is kind of hard to see, I know, when I scanned it in, and I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. From the board members, are there any questions to her before I open the public hearing? Thank you, Ms. Cobb. We will now open the public hearing. Who would like to speak on behalf of this application?
We own a lot to the right of this lot as well, so we're building basically the same house on this lot, if you give me permission. And that district right there, so that's say we're doing a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this application? If not, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? If not, Mr. Orr, would you like to make any additional comments? We will now close the public hearing. I turn to the board for questions, comments, or motion.
Make a motion for approval?
Motion for approval from Board Member Eslick,
Second.
from Board Member Froman. Motion and second for approval. Discussion of the motion. Ms. Knight, call the roll, please.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Peter C. Jackson,
Yes.
Daniel Froman,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Howard Benton.
Yes.
The vote is carried.
Congratulations. Our next public hearing this afternoon is BZA 21-2021, Brandon Clements, 120 Linden Avenue. Ms. Knight, if you'll present the caption, please.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 21-2021. The applicant, Brandon Clements, is requesting a variance to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 21.9 feet for the construction of a new fence. The property is identified as tax map 34G17, parentheses A, asterisk 274, asterisk 275, and parcel 350-814-000. Addressed as 120 Linden Avenue, Suffolk Voting Borough. Zoning classification, residential medium density RM. When you act on this request, you be acting on a request to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 21.9 feet for the construction of a new fence. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the eight findings listed in your package must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, Zoning Administration Enforcement Manager.
As previously stated, the applicant, Brandon Clements, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 21.9 feet for construction of a 6-foot fence in the required front yard. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 34G17, parentheses A, parentheses, asterisk 274, asterisk 275, located at 120 Linden Avenue, Suffolk, Virginia, Suffolk Voting Borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia. A sign was also posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required front yard setbacks in order to construct a new 6-foot fence in the required front yard. This property is non-conforming as the home does not meet the required front yard setbacks for the RM zoning district. The covered front porch is encroaching into the front setbacks at 16.9 feet instead of the required 25 feet. The applicant is asking for the fence to be set back behind the covered front porch at 21.9 feet from the front property line, shown on the survey that was included in your packet. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this request as it will not be encroaching any further into the required front yard setbacks. I am available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Are there any questions from the from the board members? Thank you, Ms. Cobb. We will now open this public hearing. Who would like to speak on behalf of this application?
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say the purpose for the fence.
Give us your name and address, please.
Okay, Brandon Clements, 120 Linden Avenue, Suffolk, Virginia, 23434. of the fence was because the neighbors looking from the street, the neighbors to the right, they have their dogs, and they let the dogs out freely. And I have young kids, and I've just felt like it was a safety hazard with the dogs using the bathroom in our yard. So I kind of just wanted to enclose it in.
This is your time to tell us what you want us to hear.
Okay. And, basically just for safety reasons. I keep a lot of valuables in my backyard because I don't have a shed. So I wanted to keep a lot of valuables out of the way. I didn't want nobody to just walk in my backyard and, access to anything they want. So that's basically all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Clemens. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this application? If not, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? If not, Mr. Clemens, would you like to make any additional comments? We will now close the public hearing. I turn to the board members for questions, comments, or motion.
Make a motion to approve the application due to the reduction in the front yard setback.
Motion for approval from Board Member Venerable. Do I hear a second?
Second.
From Board Member Froman. Motion and second for approval. Discussion of the motion. Motion and second for approval with the conditions. Ms. Knight, call for the vote, please.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Peter C. Jackson,
Yes.
Daniel Froman,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Howard Benton.
Yes.
The vote is carried.
Congratulations, Mr. Clemens. All right. Our next public hearing this afternoon is BZA 22-2021, Terry Rose, 4337 Ansley Court North. Ms. Knight, if you'll read the caption, please.
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 22-2021. The applicant, Terry Rose, is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setback from 20 feet to 8.6 feet to construct a detached garage. The property is identified as tax map 16A, parentheses 2, asterisk 45, and parcel 253-094-200, addressed as 4337 Ainsley Court North, Holy Neck Voting Borough, zoning classification Rural Estate District RE. When you act on this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required side yard setback from 20 feet to 8.6 feet to construct a detached garage. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your packet must be articulated as a part of the motion. We will now have the staff analysis and recommendation by Ms. Jennifer Cobb, Zoning Administration and Enforcement Manager.
As previously stated, the applicant, Terry Rose, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards L, to reduce the required side yard setback from 20 feet to 8.6 feet for the construction of a new detached garage located within the required side yard setbacks. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 16A, parentheses 2, parentheses asterisk 45, located at 4337 Ansley Court North, Suffolk, Virginia, Suffolk Voting Borough, zoning classification RE, Rural Estate District. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia, and the sign was posted on property. Applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required side yard setbacks from 20 feet to 8.6 feet to construct a detached garage located within the side yard setbacks. The UDO requires detached accessory structures to meet the required side yard setbacks of the zoning district if it is located within the required side yard, meaning not behind the back wall of the home. The applicant is placing the structure in this location due to the topographical issues with the lot and the resource protected area, RPA line in the rear of the property, as it is located on Lake Prince. Due to the issues with the RPA and the slope on the rear of the property, staff recommends approval of this request. And I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Are there any questions from the members of the board?
Ms. Cobb, have you heard anything or received any comment from Lot 45A?
I've not received anything from anybody over there, actually. And I'm
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Cobb. We will now open the public hearing. Who would like to speak on behalf of this application? There is no one present to speak on behalf of this application. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? If there is no one present to speak on behalf or in opposition of this application, we will now close the public hearing. I turn to members of the board for questions, comments, or a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Motion for approval from Board Member Froman. Do I hear a second?
Second.
From Board Member Eslick. Motion and second for approval. Discussion of the motion. Ms. Knight, call for the vote, please.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Peter C. Jackson.
Yes.
Daniel Froman,
Yes.
Melissa Venable,
Yes.
Howard C. Benton.
Yes.
The vote is carried.
Congratulations to the applicant. That concludes our public hearings this afternoon. Under new business, I turn to Mrs. Knight.
Mr. Benson, per the City of Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals bylaws, at the conclusion of the hearing, we're supposed to receive a motion to elect a chairman and vice chair for membership. A motion should be addressed and a vote must be cast before we can move forward.
Do we need a motion to move forward for the election, or do we need a motion incrementally for chair and vice chair?
We either need a motion to keep the board as it stands, or we can receive a new motion to cast new votes for a chairman and vice chair.
All right, the board has heard what Ms. Knight has said. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to keep the board as we presently have.
All right, motion to keep the board as it presently exists. Do I hear a second?
Second.
From Board Member Eslick. All right, discussion of the motion. Ms. Knight, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Eslick,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Froman,
Yes.
Ms. Venable,
Yes.
Mr. Benson.
Yes.
The vote is carried.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for your continued support for me to serve as your chairman. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Is there any other business that needs to come before this body this afternoon? Thank you for your attendance and participation. We are now adjourned.